Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it.
Welcome back to the Sports Ranter. All right, week 2 of your fantasy football season is now in the books, and we got to move on to week 3 and discuss what happened and figure out how we're going to put together our winning team. Here I am with our favorite fantasy football fellas. We got Jake, Drew, Nico. I don't know quite to call Nico today. I don't know what he is or what the avatar is, but just know, folks, that that's Nico behind that screen there. Say hi, everybody. All right. Let's get right into it, guys. We want to get into the league standings of our league. So let me share that real quick just to get this started. We want to keep everybody up to date with how our league is doing. Okay. Oh, here is our standings. And let's just roll down here real quick. I want to point out to everybody, there's Jake here at the top. Fantastic. His roommate has direct access to Jake. That's why he's up here at number 2.
He's spying on our podcast every day.
I'm sitting here at number 3. Andrew's at 4. And Nico makes a significant jump all the way from last place last week. Now sitting at number 5, all because of that Alvin Kamara pick that some of us were hating on. And so that's showing you guys where we're at. Just want to keep you updated every week of where we are. Your host know what we are talking about in a sense. Okay. So anyways, let's just move on with what we need to talk about this week. Week 2 is in the books. Okay. Some crazy things happened, like a late CMC and AJ Brown inactives. Hurt lots of people. And so we got to kind of discuss what these trends are going into week 2, the trains that we're going to stay on, that we're going to buy into, and we're already seeing some of the issues that we got to kind of stay away from. And so I think that we need to talk about this week. So Jake, please start us out. Let us know how you went week 2 and after all your teams and what you're seeing, what you're liking, and what you're going to try and shy away from now.
Well, you know, there's been so many big time injuries that nobody can sit and look and say, you know, woe is me. You know, I lost my first round pick. You know, I was looking at, you know, all of the injuries, and I think out of, you know, probably during the preseason, the ADP of the top 24 guys for fantasy, I think it was like 60-70% of them, you know, have been hurt. So everybody's being affected by this. And I'll say this now, like, this is the first time in all the years that I've been doing fantasy where it's going to really make a difference to the people that pay attention and can spot start, not panic, you know, really, really be able to kind of look at how teams are doing and dive into kind of the behind the scenes, because the bottom line is like you look at waivers this week, you know, I got a bunch of leagues and there's nobody that I'm going to be blowing a lot of fab on or wasting a top, you know, a top waiver wire, you know, spot on. It's a guess. It really is a guess. For example, like, you know, and with the Rams, you know, you just had both these stud receivers go down. And I mean, that devastates even guys that are healthy, Stafford and Kyron Williams. You know, teams know what they're going to be, who to target, who to cover. So you're really going to have to play the matchup game. You know, it's just one of those things where you're going to have to really pay attention to matchups and you know, for example, just, I know we're not at the waiver wire yet, but like Gardner Minshew has a pretty good matchup this week. It's just, you're going to have to pay attention to the little things and then not panic, because everybody's going through this. You know, I lost in my league, I lost my first and second round pick, you know, for multiple weeks with AJ Brown and Isaiah Pacheco. But you know, it's just, and honestly, that's where paying attention in the off season, you know, luckily I picked up a guy like Brian Robinson late. I reached for him a little bit, and you know, he's been, you know, producing and all that. But if you are suffering from this and your first round pick's gone to Christian McCaffrey, whatever, just kind of pay attention to the behind the scenes. Look at some of the stats and, you know, in the games and see who's getting the ball, see where these extra targets are going to, and kind of go from there. But it's tough. It's rough right now. And after week 2, I think teams are still with this extended league, with the extended season. I think they're still being cautious with a lot of these players. Ride it out. If you're at 2-0 or you're 1-1, but you have these devastating injuries, don't panic if you get to 1-3, 1-4, because when some of these guys come back healthy, that's going to be a big difference, because the injuries ain't going to stop. It's going to keep going. So it's a tough year right now. Everybody's losing players. Everybody's been affected by this, and you got to pay attention and see what's going on in the league, see who's getting the carries, who's getting the targets, and see what teams have good matchups. So sorry for the long-winded response. I know we're on the time, but
we love it. We're definitely seeing the results of these cut preseason games, making sure the starters aren't out there for the preseason games. No, we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen. They needed to be out there just like the rookies, just like anybody else. It's the league. We got to get ready for the season, and so maybe changes are coming. But Nico, Big Bear Nico, I'm glad you're okay. But what did you see, One-Eyed Willie?
Well, I'm a big draft guy, so I'm gonna go back to draft strategy, and I think this is where it all comes into play. If you're panicking right now, I'll tell you what, I don't think you drafted very well. I'm not saying all my teams are doing great, but when I draft a first-round running back, and I think I've said this before, you better get his handcuff. That's just all there is to it. I have Kyron Williams on one team. Guess who's on my bench? Blake Corum. I have Derrick Henry in our league. Who's on my bench, fellas? Justice Hill. If you're gonna bank a first-round quarterback or first-round running back, which is fine, if you drafted CMC, Jordan Mason should have been on your bench. That's just who should have happened. Exactly. Jake listens to our podcast, obviously. Mm-hmm. So if you lost the first-round running back, you didn't draft well if you're freaking out now. Now, if you lost the first-round receiver, there's no handcuff for receivers. But if you waited on quarterback and drafted depth, it's okay when you lose a receiver, right? But if you go quarterback early, tight end early, then you lose one of your big studs. Now you ain't got no receiver depth like some of the other teams have it. So, again,
great point.
It's not that it always works out that way, but that's why I like to draft that way in general. Playing the odds is, yes, it happens to us every year. There's injuries every year. You got to draft depth. And if you don't have that depth, you might feel like you need to scramble a little bit. But, yeah, that's what I've seen, I have AJ Brown in a couple leagues. I got, we've all, like Jake said, but I'm not tripping. I feel I have a lot of depth on all my teams, and just fill right in, and we'll go with that. So in my mind, what I see is, you guys really got to focus on your drafts and just make sure you draft depth so that one injury doesn't derail your entire season, because you don't have anybody to plug in after that.
No, I would agree. I used to draft position-based. I used to brag to everybody that I got a top 5 in every position, right? I got somebody in there. Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, kicker, defense. I used to draft accordingly, right? But when you find out that these injuries, like I said, I've been in panic mode before, where I drafted that way and all the teams gone after week 1, week 2, and now what do? So I agree with you, Nick. That's a fantastic point about drafting late or drafting well on your draft day. Drew, what stood out to you week 2?
Oh man, there's a lot of injuries. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get to it at some point. But how is the Tua situation going forward? How's the Dolphins? When you have these huge players that just can completely swing things for teams, it makes it so much harder to gauge how well your player is. Obviously, yeah, Matt Stafford, it's a scary situation. Like, what do you do if you have Matt Stafford? I mean, he's always one of those fringe quarterbacks where you don't have to play him, but there's so many injuries going forward. But my biggest takeaway from all of it is, if you have if you have depth in your team's doing good, and you have a manager, say like a Christian McCaffrey manager, and they went all in on their like running back position, and then they kind of cruised on it, like because they knew they had CMC, or say they have AJ Brown and they kind of cruised on receiver, they might be scared as far as like what depth they have. If you have the opportunity to steal that person, like for me, I have Jordan Mason in our league. So for me, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to acquire Christian McCaffrey if I can. If I can go get Christian McCaffrey, let him sit on my bench, and then know I have the 49ers running back for the year, I'm great. We know Christian McCaffrey, when he comes back, he's going to be okay. Like, yeah, could he possibly get hurt again? Sure. But is he the best fantasy football player when he's healthy? 100%. So if you're able to scramble and get a decent trade for one of the best players in the leagues because the guy's 0-2 as a manager and he's like, shit, I got to get something going, by all means, take advantage of that situation. Like, on draft day that you drafted well and your depth is good, go and try and snipe some of these players that are hurt, let them sit on your bench, and even if you take a loss or two, it's not going to be the biggest deal because you have them for the playoff run and you have them for later on in the season. So try and capitalize on these players that are hurt if these teams are scrambling and getting worried because they're, if you can get a 2-for-1 with average players at best, and then you come away with a normal top 5 stud, swing it. You know what I mean? Swing it.
Fantastic. And I want to go back to on what Nick said about the draft. And so one thing that I have stuck to, the one trend and number one rule that I've been sticking with is drafting late quarterback. And right now, the top 2 quarterbacks in the league, fantasy football-wise, is Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield. They are way up there, and everybody's drafting early. Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, blah, 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 blah. This is the reason why we, like I said, Jake, we pay attention to the offseason. We pay attention to such scenarios. We pay attention to coaching changes. All these things make a difference. And not, and like I said, a lot of people are jumping early for those quarterbacks, but no one really saw this Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr phenomena. And so, yeah.
Well, I think this year especially, and I think we're all kind of in on. We all see. I think everybody on the show sees the strategy of taking quarterbacks late and waiting on tight ends. But in most leagues, in a lot of leagues, and a lot of average fantasy players, they like getting the Mahomes or the Josh Allen and this and that. And in my league, Josh Allen fell to me in the 4th round, like the 4th pick of the 4th round. I took him, and I was like, that's great. But you're seeing now more than ever with the lack of offense that's going on around the NFL and the injuries, that how valuable it is to wait on quarterbacks and tight ends, because will Sam Laporta probably finish in the top 5? Yeah, he will. But the guy for where people had to take that guy, or Kelsey or Mark Andrews, you're probably really hurting if you were a guy that drafted one of these guys that got hurt, and there was a guy like James Conner sitting there, and you passed over for, because you're going to have the number 1 tight end. A guy like Laporta, you'll probably still have the number 3, number 4 tight end, but it takes 2 or 3 big games from a tight end to get, into that realm. And it really, this year more than ever, I think has really shown that it does benefit to wait, and take, your quarterbacks and your tight ends later on, because it's just these receivers and running backs now, man, the injuries are just so widespread, everywhere. Everybody's feeling it. And it's like, in my league, I lost my first 2 picks in AJ Brown and Isaiah Pacheco. And it's like, I got Josh Allen, great, but fuck, it's like, thank God I got I hit on a few guys later that seem okay so far, but it doesn't work out that way. I would much rather have at this point waited on a guy and taken a guy like Baker or Derek Carr at the end of the drafts and had that 4th round pick, to have depth in those other positions. So
I also remember Drew talking a lot of smack about Sam Darnold, which is fine, rightfully so. But wow, I think that was a little bit of. I think Sam Darnold heard you talking on our podcast a little bit ago, Andrew. I'm sorry about that. But
I hear he listens.
but maybe the Vikings are for real.
Minnesota has their number for some reason. Minnesota has their number.
Dude, but hey, we lost to Minnesota last year and still managed to get to the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. We're okay.
Well, guys, I think it's right. I think the window's now open to go ahead and get right into the waiver wire. Look at all these quarterback situations that are happening. Tua now being out, people not really producing very, very well. Running backs, injuries, receivers, the tight end situation being dry. Obviously, let's just go ahead and talk about it. A lot of things happen. So, Drew, if you don't mind starting us off, who do you anticipate is going to be sitting there on the waiver wire this week? Or even what Jake has said, we need to start paying attention to these backups. We got to start looking a little bit deeper into spot play. What's something that we got to do now if you're in panic mode? You loaded up on these players. You have Pacheco, you have Tua, you have A.J. Brown, you have Debo. All these guys are now out multiple weeks out of nowhere, right? Out of nowhere, these guys are out multiple weeks. So that means we got to get to work. So what are we going to do, Drew?
I mean, at the quarterback position, we talked about it still on the show. I mean, Derek Carr's still out there in a lot of leagues. Derek Carr's still out there in a lot of leagues. Baker's still out there in a lot of leagues. I mean, you guys just mentioned it. Sam Darnold has been doing decent. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are producing. Look at the matchups, see what's available, see what's out there. I think at the running back position, it's scary. I mean, you got to kind of take your shot. If you're in a PPR league and you lost Isaiah Pacheco, Carson Steele's there. We've already seen him fumble. I think it's going to – if I have a PPR situation league, I want Samaje Perine. I think he's going to give you more upside as far as catching goes. But, yeah, the receiver situation, like you have Juwan Jennings in the Niners, who's been he's leading the team in targets the last 2 weeks with, Ayuk still there and this, that, and the other. Like, Brock definitely still has a connection with Juwan Jennings, and I think that's something that, you should look into. Obviously, we're not blowing the load here. Like, we're not putting in big money bids because this is all just, speculation. Like, this is no for sure guarantee Carson Steele's the guy. Samaje Perine's the guy. Like, Juwan Jennings can fill in for a week or two. Debo's going to be back. Like, these guys are all going to be just, fill the void for a couple weeks and you're good. Obviously the one that was really weird was Evan Ingram. Like, he was out. Is he going to be out for multiple weeks? What's going on? So it's just like, pay attention to the tight ends. It's really matchup plays. Like we've been saying this whole podcast. It's look at the matchup, see what you got, and see if you can find somebody that's decent. When Evan Ingram went out, Zach Ertz was there. Zach Ertz put up 60 yards. These kind of guys are serviceable tight ends who have names that you're going to try to look for on the waiver. The other one that kind of sticks out to me right now is Tutu Atwell with the Rams. He's the only person I think that Stafford really has a multiple year connection with. And Atwell is somebody who is serviceable. He's decent. But other than that, it's just kind of looking through, seeing what you can find. Deontay Foreman's getting some reps over there in Cleveland. So it's just, you got to kind of just bury your head down, see who's leading in targets, see who's leading in carries, and shoot your shot. But definitely don't waste a lot of fab this week on these players that it's a speculation ad. That's all really we're doing this week is just speculation ads.
Real quick, Nick, before I'm going to pass the question to you. We have viewers asking questions, guys. One of our million viewers here. Thank you, Seth. He says that he has Caleb Williams, Kirk Cousins as his quarterback, but he has Nico Collins, and so he wants to trade for the C.J. Stroud tandem. Considering the Caleb Williams and Kirk Cousins, is that something that you think is worth it?
If you could do it, yes, but it's a more complicated question than that. I gotta, see what on his, who's on his roster, what is he giving up for him, and all that. So I wouldn't give up, position players for a quarterback. But we just talked about it. Go pick up Derek Carr, or Baker Mayfield, or someone off the waiver wire, and don't give up your depth just so you can have a quarterback receiver combo. I think it's a little overrated. It's nice when it works, but what happens when they're on a bye week, then you kind of almost, you maybe count that as a loss already, and then because you got two guys on a bye week, and you might have other guys on bye weeks too from other teams. So you gotta, again, sometimes you're in the playoffs, one game matters in fantasy football. So I wouldn't give up too much depth because you got bye weeks coming. A lot of trades and all this. These first 4 weeks, you know, fantasy owners tend to panic because they haven't had buys yet, right? When buys start coming into play, that's when you're really gonna start realizing, oh shoot, I wish I had more depth, or I wish I didn't drop that guy, or I wish I would have made that trade. Because it's nice right now when you're like, oh, look at my lineup, it's sick. But every week moving after week 4, you got two guys on a bye, three guys on a bye, four guys on a bye, another two guys on a bye. You're like, oh shoot, my team's not that strong once you start eliminating a couple guys from the starting lineup. So it's not about having the best starting squad. It's about that depth. And I keep going back to it. That's what's going to win you leagues because you want that plug and play even if you are missing a few guys. So is it worth it? If you're getting them for the cheap, sure, why not? But if you're giving up even a number 2 receiver and somebody else, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. Not for a quarterback. It's not worth it at that point. Enjoy the Nico Collins. What's wrong with just enjoying Nico Collins? Like I don't understand why I have to give up pieces to go get CJ Stroud as well.
Jacob, what do you think? What are you looking at this week on the waiver wire? What's going to give you an edge with all your injuries and all your spot plays?
Honestly, I'm looking at our league, Nick's league now, looking at my league as well. There's not anybody I'm going heavy to the paint with. Obviously, Jordan Mason is not on waivers anywhere, but with Pacheco going out, none of those guys are somebody, they just signed, Kareem Hunt coming in. None of those guys are going to be a dominating 3-down back. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to say if I am the Isaiah Pacheco owner out there, which I am, it's like I'm not dumping a bunch for any of these guys. The one guy the one guy that's interesting to me is Juwan Jennings. That would be one guy that with Debo out, that I would be targeting. But Hunter Henry is also seems like he is the target in New England. But beyond that, just be patient. Just play it out. Like even some of these guys. Nick mentioned like Blake Corum and this and that. You have Mixon sustained an injury, but it's like, how hard are you really going to go at Dameon Pierce? Like he's had his chance to make his mark and he just hasn't done it. I'm not dumping a bunch of fab or wasting, a big waiver wire. If I'm at the top of the waiver wire pick in my league, like I'm not wasting it on those guys. So, it's kind of a frustrating answer to the question because people are panicking. But I would say like all your fantasy leagues have an extra game because of the extra, NFL season game. If you're 0-2 or whatever, just stand pat, wait. I would be looking more for trades, things like that. If for example, Tyreek Hill, we know that Tua is probably not coming back. We'll get into that later. But if somebody believes in Tua and you can pick up somebody like a James Conner and maybe another piece like a George Pickens who had a really bad game last week. But, I would be looking more to kind of trade, at this point, rather than blowing all your fab or your waiver wire spot, because there really isn't anybody out there right now that looks like a for sure thing. There just isn't.
Hey, and Ben, I'd like to mention a couple guys. I mean, talk about looking ahead. One is Mike Gesicki. He looks like he's getting some targets out there. And, as long as T. Higgins is out, who knows how long he'll be out. It looks like, 13 targets in 2 weeks for a tight end. The way the tight ends have been looking, it's pretty decent. You got Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. So just a kind of like a stash maybe. But the other guy, like I said, try to be proactive, not reactive. If you're a Brees Hall owner, you should be getting Byron Allen right now.
That is the one guy that's interesting on the waivers.
Don't wait till, I mean, again, Ben or Jake, yeah, you talked about Joe Mixon. You didn't draft Joe Mixon in the first round, so having to get his handcuff and all that. Now, you drafted Breece Hall 3rd, 4th, 5th, 2nd overall. You should have his,
save some stuff for,
You should have his backup. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Have him in both leagues, and I don't have his backup in either league. But
I'm just saying, you don't want to be CMC. You don't want to be like, I'm just saying, like, you got 6 bench spots. One of them should be for your your cowbell running back. That's
thing
all.
Is, the thing is, before the season started, though, you didn't really know who that guy. Like Jordan Mason.
No, I feel you. That's what I'm saying now. Right now, get him before anybody else.
But everyone's going for him. Like, everyone's going to be going for him. Like that's not a secret right now. I
don't know if everybody is, because unless you're a Breece Hall owner, he's not going to be that. So I'm not saying some guys will not. I'll tell you right now, I don't have Breece Hall. I'm not going for him. I like him. I like his upside, but I'm not going to get him in any one of my leagues because right now it's not worth it for me. You know what I mean? Because in my leagues, the way I built mine, he ain't starting in any one of my leagues. And the only way he becomes a starter is if Breece Hall gets hurt. Like, he's not better than any of the running backs I have starting right now, barring injury, of course. So
right. But you probably didn't sustain an injury on your running back, to your running backs, this week. If you're somebody that lost, an Isaiah Pacheco or something like that, it's like there may not be anybody on the waivers, but if I can pick up Breece Hall's backup for cheap, because the way the season's going, it's like I'll take the risk now to put him and to stash him on my roster, because if Breece Hall gets a hamstring or something like that and misses 3 weeks, I got a starter for 3 weeks. I'll take that,
Especially because I feel you, Jake, but it's kind of like you're one of 10. Somebody might be going after the steel guy. Somebody's going after P. Ryan. Other guys might be going after Foreman or even, Antonio Gibson. Like, they're not all just going after Allen. You know what I mean? So,
well, the difference is, though, between Allen and those other guys that you mentioned is we saw Allen in this. We saw what he can do. He looked like the guy that if Breece Hall goes out, Allen's going to get.
We know he's the for sure backup now.
Right. We don't know that in Kansas City. P. Ryan didn't get anything. When Pacheco was healthy, so we know that Allen. It will probably.
I think it's the steel guy. The fact that he fumbled and they threw him back in there told me a lot.
Yeah.
Because if he would have fumbled and then like P. Ryan took over the rest, that would have been something different. But the fact that Andy Reid threw him back in there and gave him the ball right away, he likes him. Coaches do that when they like the player. So I don't know what to think of it, but I think they like Steele.
Real quick question for those of us who have Tyreek Hill. Obviously, it's kind of a silly question, but has he proven in the past that you still play him even though he has a change at quarterback? Tua is out a lot. So what do you guys think, real quick, for those people who have Tyreek Hill? Do you still play him this week?
Well, you're of course you're going to play him. But at this point, if I'm the Tyreek Hill owner, before this gets too bad, I mean, Tyreek came out and said that Tua is the most accurate quarterback he's ever played with. They designed that offense with Tua to target Tyreek Hill. Miami's offense hasn't looked great, starting off the season, and now you're going with Skylar Thompson. If I could get a guy like maybe a Chris Godwin or one of these guys where, Tyreek's name still has value, but you're not getting that second overall pick value for the rest of the season. I think Tua's done. We'll get into, Tua later. We're going to talk about him. But if I can get like a James Conner or somebody like a J.K. Dobbins and maybe like a Jackson Smith to add depth, because I probably lost some running backs or receivers, I'm shooting my shot and getting rid of Tyreek, because it's just he'll probably have a few big games. I get it, but you're not getting that consistent number 2 overall pick value anymore without Tua. You're just not.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Like I said, I'm gonna have to make the decision. Thank God it's in my 10-team league, so there'll be somebody sitting there on my bench. Nick, did you say something? I see your mouth moving, your avatar mouth moving.
Short answer, there's guys that are quarterback proof. He's one of them. Justin Jefferson's another one. Like, We all thought he was going to be, you know, there's some guys that are quarterback proof. You got to ride with them.
I mean, with Tyreek Hill and the whole situation there, I mean, the one I'm more scared of is Jalen Waddle. You know, so obviously he's going to get his targets no matter what. Just like Nick said, Justin Jefferson, you know, Jamar Chase, these guys are going to get targets. They're target hogs. They're number ones. They're true number ones. They're going to get, you know, 10 to 12 targets a game. That's just they commanded no matter what. The guys who I'm scared of is Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, for one, he can't really stay healthy on a week-to-week basis to begin with. And then you give him a very inaccurate quarterback, or it's Skylar Thompson, or it's going to be Snoop Huntley because they just signed him. You have a person who just isn't going to be that guy. You know what I mean? They're definitely going to – I mean, Devon Achane already has looked like he's a slot receiver in general. Like, the dude is getting so many targets. And I think with any quarterback they – and dude, Jalen – I mean, Achane's looking like stud. But anyways, they're – do a lot of dump off stuff. Yeah, it could benefit Jalen Waddle, sure, but for me, I would be looking to more trade him and try to get away from Jalen Waddle than I would be trying to get rid of Tyreek Hill.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's week 2 of the 2024 season, and week 2 has proven the importance of drafting depth, paying attention to your draft, because all these injuries has set us to have a conversation about quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends already. I'm getting the feeling that some people are already in panic mode, even though it's only week 2. But we're going to find out going forward. Right here, your favorite fantasy football crew. We're going to be here every week, 6 p.m., every Tuesday, right before the waiver wire opens. We're going to give you the best insight as we move forward. And so, as we close it out here, I got to be transparent, you guys. In this offseason, I was pretty proud to have 2 jerseys for the Panthers that were on the team currently right now. Okay? I was so proud to have these 2 jerseys, okay? The first jersey, Derek Brown, week 1, okay? Out for the freaking season, one of the best players and D tackles in the league. Out for the damn season. There goes that jersey. Week 2, I got a Bryce Young jersey, and he is now on the bench for the first time in history. We're a first round. Shut up, Nick. I see you laughing. I know. I see your mouth laughing. Your avatar, stupid avatar. Anyways, Bryce Young, historically benched after week 2, after being the number 1 overall pick. I want to ask you guys. With this call made by David Canales, I don't know if it has any. It obviously doesn't have any fantasy football implications because the Panthers are dead last in offense, and hopefully we see a revamp in Andy Dalton. But do you guys think this was the right move? Go ahead, Nick. Start us off.
I think so. You know, put all jokes aside. He just looks scared out there, man. He looks scared out there. Like he's just not ready. I mean, yeah, he could have you know, he throws a smooth ball, but he just doesn't know where he's throwing it. I think he's a ideal case that like a year or 2 on the bench behind a veteran quarterback, all that, let him develop, all that stuff. It does benefit some guys more than others. Everybody can't be a CJ Stroud. Even Patrick Mahomes sat for a year. So, you know, could he have stepped in? We don't know, honestly. Now we might say, look back like, oh, he would have been good his rookie year. We don't truly know that. Sitting for a year is undervalued in my mind. If you talk to any old school quarterback, they will all tell you the same thing. Sitting that first year at least and just learning how to be a pro, learning how to be a leader, because that's the other thing. He's got to be a leader of the team. Does it look like the players want to play for him? There's something missing there. And like I said, like the eyes, like I don't know, it just looks like he's scared out there. Like he doesn't know what's going on. So that's a confidence thing. That's obviously 2 coaches in 2 years. Like there's no familiarity. There's nothing there. I think yes, let him sit down for a second. Hey, learn how to be a pro. Learn this offense. Learn it from the sideline. Learn it with the headset, and then let's see if you know he can make up some ground after that. So I think so, because eventually you keep him out there and just let him keep getting punished. He's going to turn into the not David Carr, right? David Carr had some talent, but you know, getting sacked 60 times a year, yeah, you're gonna get gun shy, and he never really got to maybe develop into a quarterback that, at least to the level that his brother, is succeeding right now. You know what I mean? So yeah, you got to sit him down before you lose him completely, if you haven't already.
Jacob, what do you think?
I think the way these franchises go about these first round rookie quarterbacks, it's so off. Like it's just wrong. Bryce Young deserves to be benched. If you're the head coach, you're trying to keep your job by winning games. But it's like this dude's first year. The head coach last year, the head coach that came in, that's who they drafted. Like that's who they wanted. Now this head coach inherits, a quarterback that he didn't draft. I don't know if he wants him or not, or believes him or not. But look at the Packers. Like Jordan Love sat for 2-3 years, and everybody hated that draft pick. The first, their first round pick, Aaron Rodgers, blew up because, why didn't we get someone to help us win now, or this and that? But they did the same thing, with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. And the Packers, for the last now probably 3 decades, have a franchise quarterback. Once their last franchise quarterback left, the new one steps in because he had time to grow and learn in the NFL. The bottom line is it's very rare to get a CJ Stroud who comes in their rookie year and just adapts to the NFL pace and has that intelligence to be able to adapt to what these teams do. I think that as Carolina they didn't go about it right, like a lot of these franchises, don't. I feel like a lot of them don't. Everybody, wrote off Sam Darnold, wrote off Baker Mayfield because it's like
Geno Smith.
Geno Smith and even Caleb Williams. They're thrown into the fire on these shit teams. Who usually, if you're drafting first overall, you probably don't have an offensive line. You probably don't have very many skill players. And you're asking this guy to go out and completely change the franchise. And the franchises give him 1-2 years, to be, take him to the playoffs because these expectations are so high. And it's just not how football is. So, it's criminal. If I was the Panthers head coach, yeah, I would bench him because you're right. You're not winning. To keep your job, you have to make sure fans are going to the game, make sure that you're competitive, make sure you're not in embarrassment. But it's just so rare to get that quarterback that can step in as a rookie and change a franchise. Peyton Manning threw 34 interceptions, his rookie year. And he was able to turn it around and all that. But a lot of these guys they can't do that. And look at Baker now. Like, Baker, is one of those guys where we're all talking about a big waiver wire pickup and, Sam Darnold. And it's like, it's on the franchise. It's on the team to make sure that these quarterbacks have what they need to succeed also. And, Bryce Young just hasn't had it. And so, yeah, bench him, fine. It's probably the best thing for the franchise. But I think the franchise is ridiculous because you essentially wasted that pick, and you're probably going to be in the running for a first round pick, a first overall pick in the next year, and you'll probably take another quarterback, and it'll be the same song and dance over and over again. I love, what the Chargers are doing right now. You got Justin Herbert, who's, this guy that everybody has all this talent, and he does, and this and that. But there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league right now that can do what he's doing, and have the same success because the Chargers said we have to change like our approach to the game. The way they're running the ball, their offensive line. A lot of people were critical about taking, Alt, in that spot. But you have this savage offensive line now, and you could put any quarterback back there, and you have a running game. It's on the franchise to kind of make sure that you have a system in place for these rookies quarterbacks to succeed. And Carolina has not done that.
Drew, you seem to disagree.
The thing that is mind blowing is you guys just mentioned Geno Smith, and you guys just mentioned Baker Mayfield. Guess who fucking changed those guys' careers? Dave Canales. This guy is a quarterback guru. That's why they brought him in. They brought him in for Bryce Young. And all of a sudden you want to give up on him 2 games. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Yeah, you brought in a few people like Deontay Johnson, who honestly has been average at best his whole career. The guy is not really getting – he needs reps. He doesn't need to be sitting on the bench. He needs to be able to play. He needs to be able to play through it and be able to see the tape and have somebody who actually knows what's going on and how to make him better in his year.
Okay, but I heard today though that I heard a stat today that Baker Mayfield was they do like a pressured on percentages of plays or whatever. He was pressured by the defense the least amount that he's been in his entire career, and he was terrible. He was missing throws where he was not pressured, wide open. So I don't think Canales, I don't think it was his decision. I think it was upper management, which is why I'm saying it's the franchise as a whole. I don't think it was his wish to, bench the guy. But, if you're a guy that owns a football team, you want to put asses in the seats. That's how you make money. And they weren't going to do it with him. Like, he has not shown anything. And I agree. Like, if your franchise is going to invest in the number 1 overall pick and make that trade to give away all this to get him, yeah, you better invest in him. But at the same time, too, you're setting him up to fail. So I get what you're saying, Drew. Give the guy his reps and this and that. But you've already lost a few years now with Bryce Young.
The thing, I have no expectations. It's one thing if you're Caleb Williams and you have all these expectations. You go get DeAndre Swift. You go get Keenan Allen, you go get these guys, DJ Moore. Like, you have these guys in place. They have no expectations, 0 expectations. They all know they're gonna fucking suck. So let the guy get his reps. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, it makes 0 sense. It's one thing if you're a fringe playoff team and you're starting rookie quarterback and he's shit in his bed. Okay, I get it. You have another guy to come in, take a step, especially Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's he's a quarterback. He's a good number 2. But it's just it's mind-blowing to me that David Tepper and the Carolina Panthers just think that they're going to magically win games somehow, and they're going to keep firing coaches and keep firing all these, and then magically one day something's just going to change. It's not fucking Disney. These guys need reps.
But think about it at this side too. Is it really good for Bryce Young's development to put him in there? Like you said, he doesn't have anything around him. He doesn't have an O-line. He doesn't have these guys like the Bears went out and got for Caleb Williams. Like, are you going to put him out there for 17 games and have him get his ass kicked? Like, is that really going to be, like, good for the guy moving forward? Or, because, like, Andy Dalton's not going to come in and all of a sudden the Panthers are going to be good. I think that from a fantasy standpoint, if you have some of those receivers like Deontay Johnson or whatever, I think Andy Dalton will probably be more competent and move the ball a little better. But if you truly are, and I don't know if Carolina is, but if you truly are invested in Bryce Young, give him that year that they're supposed to get, their rookie year, to sit down and learn the game a little better, because it's clear he hasn't, or if he doesn't have anything around him. Save his body, save his confidence, and let him sit and learn, and let them build a team around him, because just putting him out there is just throwing him to the wolves at this point. We've seen it for the last 2 games.
Andrew, he got a lot of reps last year, but he got a lot of. I know it's a different offense, but he got a lot of reps last year. Okay,
with DJ Moore,
he hasn't shown like he can't even make the easy reads, dude. He's throwing in the double coverage, blind spots. Like, where, I mean, Ben, I know you've watched the games. Like, it's not even close. Like, it's one thing if you're like, oh, look at that throw. Oh, that was a great throw. Oh, he's not showing signs. He's looking at the rush
or
right
flashes,
when he gets the ball.
Right.
Anthony Richardson had a terrible week last week, but the guy has also shown flashes of greatness where he can throw the ball 70 yards in the air and hit a receiver on target. Like, he's shown flashes that he has that ability. We haven't seen any of that from Breece Hall in a year and 2 games now.
No, I agree with you guys. And to close this out, Andy Dalton has done this twice for both the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears. He came off the bench and won a game. So sorry, Nick.
Not this week.
We'll see what happens. But no,
Crosby's going to kill him.
We'll see what happens, but I do believe Bryce Young was seeing ghosts out there. It doesn't help him at all to develop. And number one, I think the call was made by Dave Canales. Watching the film, there are other guys doing good things on the team, putting out, doing good things on the defense. You don't see it because they haven't been able to make a stride with the offense. But there's been good signs. So there's other guys out there that are doing the job, that are playing hard, and they're just being taken back by Bryce Young's decision making. So go ahead, Drew. We'll let you close it out.
How much time do we got left? Are we going to mention the Tua topic?
Yeah, the Tua thing.
Well, now
30 seconds each.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. We'll go ahead and talk about Tua. Go ahead.
I guess I'll start it off. In my opinion, I don't think you can make. I mean, the only thing for me that the biggest thing is if you're the GM of the situation, I get it. You might want medically to have him retire, because you don't want to be quote unquote responsible to have him go back out there, right? So like, and obviously as fans, we don't want to see him freaking like die on the field. I get that, but at the end of the day, you can't force a hand on Tua if he wants to play. Like, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, he can walk away. He can have a bunch of money because he has guaranteed money. He's still going to have a grip of money for his family if he does walk away. But I think the dude wants to play, and it's like if he wants to play, how can we as media or as fandom or any of that kind of stuff tell him what to do? I get it. It sucks. Nobody wants to see somebody get hurt like that. Nobody wants to see 3 concussions, 4 concussions where it looks like dramatically he's not okay. And say, for instance, he does get another concussion this year, it's going to be a real bad look on the NFL. But who are we to say what a career has to do? Like, what do we as people have to say about that? You know, let him play his career if he wants to play it.
Sure, go ahead, Jake.
There's plenty of quarterbacks in the 90s, and obviously times have changed, and that's why all this happens, right? Where there's quarterbacks in the 90s that got drilled. I mean, destroyed. Troy Aikman, you know, you got Dan Marino, you got Steve Young. These guys got blasted left and right. But obviously it wasn't, the NFL was like, it's still huge, but today, I mean, social media and everything else, it's so much bigger. So it's so much harder, and it's so much more scrutinized than any other time.
What do you think, Jake?
To me, if I was, as far as Tua goes, Tua should retire. He should, at the end of the day, he's responsible for his health and all that. He should retire. That being said, it is not at all up to the franchise to make him retire. These quarterbacks nowadays, these players hold these franchises hostage about these contracts, wanting all this guaranteed money and this and that. And you know, they get paid. At the end of the day, they get paid. The franchises do it. So I'm not going to sit here after a guy held out and demanded that he gets all this guaranteed money and blah, blah, blah. If he goes out and suffers a concussion, if he says he wants to come back and play, and I'm the franchise where I was held hostage to give this guy all this money, and we did it, then fine. You want to come back and play? You come back and play. It's on him. The NFL we've already gone through the extensive, you know, concussion protocol. They, you know, outside neurologists and this and that. That's why Tua's on IR right now. He can go get all this outside information. But at the end of the day, if it's cleared and they say, you know, yeah, he can play, blah, 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 it's on Tua. If I'm the owner or the GM of this team and I've paid a guy like, you know, Deshaun Watson or any of these other guys where our franchise was held hostage, you know, to pay this guy all this money, and we did it, then if he wants to play and the outside, you know, neurologists and the concussion protocol say that he is able to play, God damn it, you're playing. Don't put the morality on me when, you know, as a GM or an owner, when these quarterbacks hold these teams hostage for all this guaranteed money.
Nick,
well, unfortunately, we can't. I get what you're saying, Jake, but it's not going to fall on Tua if something happens. Who are they going to blame? They're not going to blame Tua, because they're going to say Tua has that competitive nature, and it's the responsibility of the team and the ownership to. They say that about coaches all the time. It's the responsibility of the coach to make that decision for them, to keep his players safe, to keep their players safe. They're always going to want to play. They'll go out there with 2 broken legs. They're always going to want to play. They have to keep their best interest in mind. And if something crazier can happen, like, I don't know, I think he should retire, but like that's just my 2 cents. Andrew, about the 90s and all that,
How is it the coach's fault, though? How is it on the coach?
It's it's not the coach's fault. It's going to be more Miami. But what I'm saying is, like, I've heard stories from Ryan Clark that Mike Tomlin literally said, no, I'm not putting you out there. You have a chance of dying if you go out there. And Ryan Clark wanted to play. He told that story on ESPN. The coaches know, they get the medical diagnosis too. So unless he's 100% medically cleared, like, sure, fine, let him go out there. I don't think he is 100% because he's getting the stone hands, getting all that. He's not getting his bell rung. That's different than the 90s, Andrew. We don't have any video of Dan Marino on the ground with his arms stiff 3 different times or getting up and falling over. Like, his is extreme. Yeah. That's why we're talking about Tua and not about anybody else's concussions. Because when you get your bell rung, cool, you got a concussion, you got your bell rung. This is something different.
Look, as a father, or if I'm his father, Tua's my boy, son. You know, I care about you, your life, your kids, your family, your future, more than another touchdown, more than a Super Bowl ring, more than whatever. And so I do believe that the organization bears responsibility for his safety. I do agree with Jake. It's his call. He's a man. But as a man, you do what's best for your own and for your family. And that sometimes means not playing football. So with that being said, guys, I'm sorry. I got to rush. Got to get up out of here. But I want to say thank you to Jake, Drew, and Nico for your time today. Thank you for our viewers for asking your questions. And don't worry, we'll be back here next week, Tuesday, live at 6 p.m. right here at the SportsRanter, getting ready for discussing Week 3 and getting ready for Week 4. So with that said, guys, peace be the journey.
Peace.
From 2024.
Oh, yes.
I forgot to tell you guys, I'm gone the next 2 weeks. I'll be in Italy.
It's okay. You have a great
time.
time.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm out of here.
Nice.
Have a great time, bud.
See you guys in a few weeks.
Later, Bubba.
Take care.
Hope that eye gets better.